All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Tim. How are you doing today?
Hi, Francis. Yeah, doing great. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Ooh, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. So, today in this version of our Impact Real Estate Research Project, we have Tim Robinson. Tim Robinson, I'm very excited to introduce him. We met last year during Regen Week in Tulum, and it's been really interesting to see his process. He is partner at Indalo Yelapa Hospitality, Yelapa Indalo Hospitality, and also Mexican Living Design Institute. He's a partner of as well. And Tim, I want to just, have you introduce yourself, share a little bit more about your work, maybe your background, a little bit more about Indalo and the project that you're working on over there in the Pacific, and maybe a little bit more about the Mexican Living Design Institute. Introduce yourself to us, and so that the crowd can learn a little bit more about who you are. Thanks so much, and thank you for being here. It's a pleasure.
Sure. Yeah, no, again, thanks for having me. Appreciate the introduction. So I'm a partner in Indalo Yelapa. Indalo Yelapa is an eco wellness hotel development project in a place called Yelapa, which is in Valle de Banderas on the west coast of Jalisco. Well, in fact, it crosses two states, Jalisco and Nayarit to the north. And we are lucky enough to have a leasehold on a piece of 6 acre piece of beachfront land um, in the Bay of Yelapa, which is a bay within the bay on the southern coast of Valle de Banderas. And it's in the community, the indigenous community, the La Comunidad Indígena de Chacala, which encompasses the majority of the southern side of the Bay of Banderas. And so that's the sort of the geographical overview. I'm a partner. I'm director of capital markets, and my main responsibility is fundraising, building out teams, bringing in partners, and sort of general business development. I started out as a consultant on, a third party consultant, and there's an interesting story behind that. But I'm now a partner, and I'm an equity holder, and this is my this is my baby. It's the one thing the only real project I've ever cared about, I suppose, up until this point. I've done a lot of traveling in my life, and it's all my experiences have led me to where I am today, and I'm very excited that we are in the final stages of just wrapping up our funding process. We've been approved for our grant facility, and we're still at the 1 yard line. We haven't quite crossed it yet. We are waiting for the funds to land and looking to break ground in the near term. And so that's the overview of the hotel. The Mexican Living Design Institute is, I guess, our sister company, if you will. And what I mean by that is Indalo Yelapa. It is, it's a for-profit company, but we have a non-for-profit arm, which is the Mexican Living Design Institute. And I'll talk about the relationship between those two entities in a minute. And the Mexican Living Design Institute is part of a larger umbrella company called Living Design International, which is an initiative started by our advisory group, a group called Seeding Change. And the Mexican contingent is one of about 7 or 8 sites globally, which include eco-hospitality projects and communities, largely indigenous communities, but communities in places like Iceland, the US, Panama. But Mexico is the most advanced one of those projects to date, and we'll be breaking ground soon, and it's off to the races. So that's the sort of the brief overview of the project. Just quickly on myself, my background: I'm a geologist by trade, which is initially I was working in the mining industry, which is a complete 180 degrees from where I am today, and but it ties in quite well to this project because the whole thesis of this project is to, rejuvenate the watershed on the community level. And so we have three main sites within Mexico's largest watershed, which runs all the way from the headwaters in Lerma through Lake Chapala to down to the coast where Yelapa is. And then from there, we have the ripple effect. We'll fund some NGOs. We'll fund a lot of Indigenous businesses, enterprises through our Indigenous business incubator. And that's sort of really the key element to our project, and what it makes a difference is our focus is not only on community, but it's on Indigenous business incubation as a key fundamental concept, so that these people can uplift their own livelihoods and not rely on philanthropic funding. It's the case of, we give them the tools, we give them the skills, we teach them about business and how to sustain businesses, so that when our tenure, our 45-year lease on our 6-acre piece of land eventually comes to an end, then they have the tools and the frameworks to continue, uplifting their own lives into the future.
Beautiful, beautiful. Congratulations on the advances on the funding. And yeah, it's been an interesting journey, and I'm very, very happy to see things move forward with Indalo Yelapa. And I can't wait to visit sometime. It's an absolutely beautiful, beautiful location, and the Pacific is definitely been calling me for a little while, at least to spend a little time there. So excited to see how things progress in the future in your journey. And thank you for taking on this challenge. I know it's a lot. So I know the soul and that you put into it, and the passion that you put into it. I remember our conversations back in Tulum, and yeah, it was interesting to learn a little bit more.
Yeah.
So going into what we're doing here, we're talking about impact real estate. So we're really calling this a process of, we want to learn more about catalyzing capital in towards impact real estate projects, and we're calling it impact real estate. In reality, we call regenerative development, and reality, we are basically focusing on projects that are on regeneration and that are looking at positive for the people, positive for the planet. But we don't want to, we're aware that regeneration really, may be aspirational for many. So we're calling it impact real estate. When you hear the terms of impact real estate, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think, I speak through the lens of our project and the frameworks and the systems that we implement. To us, we use something called a multi-capital framework to measure our impact by. And so, if you speak to typical investors, they're worried about financial return as their, or financial capital as their main sort of metric to success. And we don't think like that. We think across a multi-capital framework, which I think there's eight different types of capital, but just off the top of my head, it's social, it's cultural, it's environmental, it's financial, it's manufactured. There's 8 in total, and I think that was 5 or 6 of them. And it's a case of educating people, educating businesses to understand that when you focus on other capitals outside of financial capital, then the actual amalgamation and the coherence between those different types of capital, when they come together, usually at the end of the day, the financial capital is actually greater. And we've seen that in a neighboring project right next to us, Casita Maricas, which is another sort of hotel beach club, and they've been implementing a lot of environmental and social and cultural principles into their business model, and as a result, the owner there, Mike, has seen some their bottom line grow significantly, and so the problem is it's educating family offices, and obviously we have this big boomer generation passing on all their wealth, this huge transfer of wealth that's going on now, and so what we're looking to do as part of the Live and Design International is educate these people who are going to inherit these large sums of money into the living design ethos, which is again using that multi-capital framework and making people and investors understand that the way forward, if we are going to regenerate the planet and put people first, it involves integrating these original principles that Indigenous people hold, and combining that with technology and systems and frameworks, which allow the transfer of knowledge, both community level, on a generational level, and combining that with things like profit sharing, and for in our instance with INDALO Yelapa, we give 50% of our profits to the community through our own NGO, which comprises of people from the hotel on the board, community members on the board, members of our advisory group, who then go and decide where those funds are best spent, using the local knowledge and the environmental knowledge that we can gather. And on top of that, we match our cost to build the hotel with a on a dollar by dollar basis with a direct capital injection into the NGO. So for instance, it's roughly 20 million to build our eco wellness hotel and institute, and the community will also be getting a direct capital injection into the NGO of that amount plus the 50%, and that's really not what's unique about it. That's just an element of what I think is impact real estate. It's everyone's got to live at the end of the day, but our main concern is rejuvenating the village of Yelapa, which over the past sort of 40-50 years has seen a downward trajectory across that framework, and it's sad to see, but that's the case when you have a big city like Puerto Vallarta pop up on the other side of the bay, and people go and see the bright lights and the opportunity over there, and you get this brain drain of local workforce and knowledge and culture, and you really see that in the fabric of Yelapa. And so it's a case of listening to the people, and that's our first step, is getting on the ground, listening, understanding their pain points, understanding where there is potential to create micro businesses, in between families, intergenerations, that target pain points within the community and work in conjunction with the Eco Wellness Hotel, so that within a certain time period, for us is 3 years, we have created a circular economic system that is regenerative. And if the funding stops, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because we've given them the tools and the frameworks to be able to produce cash flow and produce revenue on their own behalf. And that's then backed up by the profit sharing from the hotel. So it's that's quite a long-winded answer, but that's what I'd say my definition of impact real estate is.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love it. I mean, you are really looking at it from a regenerative perspective, and focusing on like you said, the 8 capitals, and focusing on the fact that you're focusing on the Indigenous communities is huge. I think a lot of times that's one of the biggest gaps that exists. Is I'm personally kind of in this process of like, how do we heal the issue of gentrification? And I think this you're approaching that head on with the work that you're doing there in Jalapa. So I commend you for that and congratulate you. So and again, in a lot of the interviews that I've had, there's just different small aspects, but here you're covering it all. So it's really good to listen to that and to know that there are people that are actually looking at all different capitals and not just, 1 or 2 or 3 of them. And that's what we're aiming to see in regenerative projects. Beyond impact, truly regenerative. I'm curious, and I know a little bit of the story, but maybe for the audience here, so that they can understand, share a little bit more about your challenges obtaining funding. Maybe I'd be interesting to listen to how you found the land, like initially how you engaged with this land and the property, and then what has been a little bit of the journey in that,
Sure.
and the challenges in obtaining the funding and to get to where you are today.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would love to hear that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. It has been a challenge. That's the way to describe it. In terms of how we got the land, we've had the land for about 4 years now. Had it under lease is what I mean by that. And my business partner Andre has he's the one who the company behind the Indalo Yelapa has the leasehold, and that process took about 2 years to establish that lease because the community of Chicala is it's an autonomous community. It's not under federal law. It's part of the RAN. I'm not going to try and pronounce it because I'll butcher it, but it's essentially a national agrarian registry. And we went through an agrarian law firm, one of the best, probably only agrarian law firm in the country. And that took a long time. It took a lot of communication, a lot of work alongside the community to establish that lease, to ensure it, to add protective measures, to help with investors and showing them that and this has really been our biggest challenge, and we see it as a challenge, but we also see it as a massive positive because the tricky thing with land in indigenous communities is you can't, owning it is not right. We don't want to take land off people, and you get a lot of pushback from people when that happens. And so we don't want to own the land. We want to be stewards of it. And the land has been operated as 3 or 4 different hotels over the span of the past 70 odd years. And it's been with the gradual kind of decline of Yelapa. Well, not decline. I wouldn't describe it as that, but it's been a challenge for hotels to maintain that business. And so us coming in with our frameworks and our systems to not only produce profit but merge that profit with impact has and the results will come and hopefully speak for themselves. But it has been challenged raising the money because we don't have collateral. And that's really what's been the biggest thorn in our side. And we have some hard asset collateral, but in terms of most typical real estate investors, when you say, hey, I've got a 10, 20, $30 million project, oh, by the way, we don't own the land, it's kind of like, well, this sounds great, but not interested. And so I was really kind of banging my head against the wall for a year and a half, trying to target your typical debt, equity, mezzanine investors, and not really getting any far. I think we got 1 or 2 LOIs from certain debt funds in that time, and it was contingent on raising an equal amount in equity. And again, that was difficult with the lack of collateral. So yes. I'd say it depends on your situation. If you don't own the land, it's going to be incredibly tough. We are very lucky that we came across a foundation. It's a private foundation who are funding us, who had just come into a significantly large sum of money, and they are required to spend it on impact projects. And so it was we're blessed with timing. We're blessed with having a team that works incredibly hard and isn't afraid to pick up the phone and call people and put yourself out there. I think that's incredibly important in this. If you do own the land, then you're going to be in a lot better position. But again, for us and our thesis and our outlook on the whole system and process, that's not what we're after. We're simply here being very grateful for the time that we have in Yelapa, and during that time, if we can help regenerate and build Yelapa into a place where people recognize it as a global center for regeneration, a global center for wellness, indigenous culture, then that's really what we're aiming for at the end of the day.
Beautiful, beautiful. And it's I remember when we spoke initially about the having the lease on the land and the land not being owned, and am I expressing a little bit of my concern on it. So you've definitely gone through a learning process here, and it's wonderful that you've been able to find the right partners through the foundation.
Yeah,
What
definitely.
was maybe in those challenges, like getting to that point, like how did you did you find from going from the traditional way of raising capital and the challenges that you were encountering there? How did you come across like this mechanism and this foundation in particular? And I'm assuming now that there's others that are coming onto that. What was your process in reaching that?
Yeah, so I connected with a lady on LinkedIn. I do a lot, most of my sort of capital markets work is done through LinkedIn, and just, it's painstaking, but you find your investor archetype and you message as many people as possible. And fortunately enough, I got connected with a lovely lady in Dubai who put me in touch with a broker to the foundation, and that's who we've been going through, and it's been, it's been a challenging process because um they seem to be one of the only major sources of capital out there, and so everyone is knocking on their door, and it's been a tricky process, but we do have our MOU, which is great, and we're just waiting for a date of when those funds are going to land, and we're hoping that's within the next few weeks. So that's yeah, that's how I found them
Yeah.
is LinkedIn, but really it that's quite lucky. I think this, at the end of the day, it's a referrals game. It's a word of mouth game. So I wouldn't necessarily say relying on LinkedIn. I think it's a great tool, but it's the end of the day, it's your network. It's finding people you like, finding people with similar interests, and getting them to refer you. It's a sniper's approach. It's not a blanket
Mm,
approach.
yeah.
People can have, you can have a big list of investors, and it doesn't mean anything. It's the relationships that come with it.
But you did say something, and this is something that other people have mentioned in these calls is, the reach out to as many people as you can. It's also a numbers game. Like, whether it's on LinkedIn and, several of the project leaders that I've spoken to in these interviews have been like, well, 1,000 people is not enough. Just keep talking and keep knocking on those doors. So having that commitment to do that is important. So again, thank you for sharing that. Now going into successful projects, like before you went into the space, where you come from, your background in raising capital, but also from geology, what are some successfully funded projects for you, from your perspective, that are successful projects that you may have aspects of it that you're in alignment with? Do you know of a few projects that you might want to share with us, or that have been sort of examples for you to look at and say, okay, well, this is a project that I can look at and apply some of the models that are being used into Yelapa?
Yeah. No, again, it's a good question. I'd say as a whole, what we're doing is quite unique. From the research that I've done, there isn't much out there like us with the same level of impact, and the team that we bring is we've got two representatives from the Grand Council of the Eagle and the Condor, which is an indigenous council that covers all of the Americas, all the way from Alaska down to the tip of South America, and just to have for instance Dr. Mindahi Bastia, who is a revered PhD indigenous wisdom keeper, to have him on our board is just, and the insights that he brings to us is been spectacular. In terms of other projects, that perhaps aren't as focused on indigenous peoples, Playa Viva, David Leventhal, that's a very impressive project. I love the architecture. I love the programs that they implement. The area they're in is incredible. There's one in Bacalar, which is I forget the name of it. It'll come back to me. Which is also, they have a big temple, which is actually, did you work with them at one point? I think.
You're referring to Akalki.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah. I
I
think
I
that.
was working. Yeah, we did have a little bit of a conversation there. They're doing some good things.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know too much about it, but from the basic research I did, I think they're quite cool. There's a friend of mine, Frank Stork, who is building an amazing project he's actually potentially looking to find a JV partner in it as well. So that's in Bahia de Concepcion, which is on the east coast of the Bahia of the peninsula, Baja Peninsula. I'm forgetting the name of his project as well, but Frank Stork. It's a beautiful bay within the Bahia de Concepcion, and they have managed to get the escritura, the deed for the land, within a larger packet of ejido land, and so there's no one around them. It's gorgeous, and that could be really good potential. I'd say, you know, there are a few projects. I think the most important thing for projects out there and investors out there is to partner with, you know, an advisory group who first, you know, knows the systems and the frameworks, has that knowledge, has that network. And for us, that's been Seeding Change. And we met them through Regen Week, which is where I met you. And they've been phenomenal. They've been incredible. They've helped us build out a, you know, 85-page business plan, you know, very in-depth models, and have helped us with communication and you know, they, especially if you're going after grant funding and even institutional funding, which is you know, if you've got a big project, is what you're aiming for. You know, you need that that expertise. And you know, I'm 30, coming up to 31 years old. You know, I don't have that depth of knowledge and experience which sometimes these big institutions requires. And so I would definitely suggest, if you're a project looking for help, reach out to them, seedingchange.com. They've been fantastic and really helped us along in our journey.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, for sharing all of that. Yeah, I'll look into some of the other projects that you mentioned. I mean, Playa Viva is always an example that we all look up to. I know Acalqui in depth, so it's a beautiful, beautiful project. I don't know about your friend's Stork project, but I will look into it. I kind of close it out a little bit with lessons. Like I would like to maybe leave the audience with what is some advice that you can give to other people aiming to do impact projects, impact real estate projects, regenerative projects. You're really having to have a positive impact. You know, many of us, I mean, we're in the same circles in the space, and there's so many incredible people wanting to do incredible projects with incredible decks out there. And there's the common thread is the lack of funding and you know, reaching the right people. I would say I'm incredibly impressed by, you know, the fact that you guys have been able to get this far. I'm very, very happy because I do remember when we met, and I remember, you know, you came to Regen Week upon an invitation through your previous partner that you had. I was really happy that you met, and all of this has manifested as a result of it. And that's proof also to say that these gatherings work to get these things going.
Yeah.
So in your experience, like what advice can you give to those out there trying to do this, aside from partnering with, you know,
Mhm.
people like
Sure.
Seeding Change? Yeah. Thank you
Yeah,
so
I
much.
mean, this is not necessarily specific to regeneration, but just stamina. You're going to have a lot of pitfalls and troughs that you have to get over, and being able to pivot is incredibly important. We've definitely had to pivot several times. You know, change direction almost completely on a number of occasions. So it's being flexible is important. You know, not, you know, you can, if you have a bad day or two, take a couple of days off, but just get back to it, and don't be disheartened, because this is an environment where it's incredibly tough to raise capital. And you know, chances are you are going to fail before you succeed, and the only way you get through that is through powering through. So I'd say surround yourself with good people. Go to events like Regen Week. Go to events like EarthX in Dallas, which I went to recently. Caught up with some friends from Regen Week actually, which was great. And yeah, just don't be afraid to put yourself out there and go for it, because you know, the odds have been stacked against us hugely in this project, and you know, it looks like we're about to pull through. You know, touch wood. But yeah, so yeah, and you know, that's what I said: flexibility, stamina, drive, you know, vision as well. Like, you know, working hard is obviously a kind of a prerequisite, but you have to sit in that vision and, you know, it sounds cliche, but manifest, breathe it in, feel it's already happened, and, you know, try and operate from a place of abundance rather than a place of lack or fear. That'll be my
Beautiful.
advice.
Beautiful, amazing. Thank you so much for those beautiful words. Thank you for your time here. If you
Thank
have
you.
anything, any final words you'd like to share with regard to the project, anything we can do to support to get this to get this to continue to move forward, please do before we
Sure.
close it out, just so that
Um,
any way that the audience can support with on making Yelapa
yeah,
happen. I know it's gonna happen, I have no doubt, but just close it out with
thank
your
you.
final words. Thanks.
Yeah, you can go to indaloyelapa.com. It's the website's, you know, a bit basic and needs updating, but you can sort of see a bit of the video of the land there. You can go to seedingchange.com to check that out. And on that page is a landing page for Living Design International, which is the umbrella portfolio of projects. And then my Instagram is at Tim S, which is my middle initial, Robinson. And I have some videos on there which you can follow along with as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here and congratulations on all of your work with Yelapa. And I'm looking forward to continuing to follow the journey and seeing everything manifest and hopefully visiting soon. We appreciate you being here and sharing your story.
Awesome. Thank you, Francis. Great to catch up.
Thanks to you. Thanks to you. I'll close this out here.